Let me bring to you now one of the lawmakers who, of course, one would say it's on the side of Ken Emekayi, and whose name is on the list taken to the party national level. That's talking about Lynda chuba-ikpeazu, who is standing by in our Abuja studios. He's a member of the House of Representatives. Thank you so much for being part of the program. What do you make of this judgment, and do you think this will affect your election in the House of Representatives?
Well, thank you very much. It is interesting that this judgment has actually occasioned blatant and crude misinterpretations. This judgment is very clear. And if I may read, what the Supreme Court actually decided was that they affirmed the judgment of Nkanjiwa J in Port Harcourt in 2012, where they said that Ogwebego is the authentic chairman. And of course, PDP has appealed against that judgment, but the case is still pending. So what the Supreme Court did today was to reiterate that Ogwebego is still the chairman. What the Supreme Court did not do was to talk about candidates. And I'll tell you why it's so clear. They held that all the issues formulated by Ogwebego was resolved in their favor. And I'm gonna just tell you what the issues are. First of all, they talked about whether the Court of Appeal was right in holding that trial judge should not have assumed jurisdiction over the subject matter of this case relating to the protection of the sanctity of the judicial process. The second is whether the Court of Appeal was right to have held that the case of the appellants was an abuse of court process. The third issue was whether the Court of Appeal was competent to determine the issue of whether the case of the appellants was an abuse of court process. 4, whether the cases of Kadibo against Emeka and others have any relevance to the real issues here. The fifth issue is whether the case of the appellants was rightly commenced by originating summons. Now, the court basically decided on the issues placed before them. From these issues that I've just enumerated now, it is obvious that there was nothing there that talked about candidates. And I'll go further to support that. In fact, the Supreme Court, because what happened was in the Court of Appeal now talked about the issue of the NEC of the party having the right to conduct primaries and send name to INEC. Now, I'll tell you what the Supreme Court said regarding that. They said that this is not the Supreme Court talking. They said, I hold the view that the court below, that's Court of Appeal, misconceived the real issue in controversy at the trial court, which gave birth to the appeal before it. Because, like I said earlier, the Court of Appeal had said that it's the National Working Committee that has the right to so do. The judge now said there was no controversy as to which organ of the first respondent, that's the PDP, has power to conduct primaries. I can say it for the upturned time that the main issue was that stated by the learned trial judge. That is, whether the first respondent that's PDP, can ignore the subsiding order of court and set up a caretaker committee for Anambra State. Period. All right. They specifically said, period. That is the issue that the Supreme Court dealt with.
Honorable chuba-ikpeazu, if I may come in here quickly.
That was given to Ogwebego by Nkanjiwa J in Port Harcourt, whether they could still, whether PDP could still set up a caretaker committee when that order is still subsisting. That was all they dealt with.
All
they
right.
said it has
just
not,
if I may come in quickly so that you can take a few questions.
To do with the powers of the organ of the party that sent. Excuse me.
I say, if I may quickly come in so that I can ask you some questions and you react to them.
Conduct primaries or send lists. The Supreme Court did not deal with that at all. So this issue is just that they confirmed Ogwebego, period. And I'm going to tell you, in one of the cases that emanated from this particular issue, where Honorable Odedo had sought to join at the Court of Appeal, and of course he's in the list of Ogwebego, Yes. The Court of Appeal refused to join him, and he went to Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court, I'll tell you what the Supreme Court said.
Just before you do that, Honorable Chuba-Ikpeazu, if you can quickly just take this question. There are a lot of inferences that could be taken from the judgment of the Supreme Court of today. The first one I will want to ask you so that you can clarify. You have the documents there, but we have some of the sketches of the details of the judgment. But quickly tell me, Mr. Ken Emeka led party leadership of the party in Anambra State was the one who submitted your names and that of some of your colleagues to the NWC, which of course has been fingered in this particular matter as invalid. Does that not invalidate your election? That's the question.
Well, I'm sorry I have to disagree with you. I think you got it totally wrong. Like I said, what the Supreme Court dealt with was who was the authentic chairman. Now, in this particular issue, I'll read. Supreme Court, they do against Ogwebego. They said, I'm not going to go. Suffice to say, it is the National Executive Committee of the PDP that has the responsibility for the conduct of the party's National Assembly primaries. Any purported attempt to conduct such primary by state chapter of the PDP cannot be validly characterized as competent. The act is totally illegal and will confer no right, as it is a nullity, and also constituting an abuse of process. It is interesting, I must say, that the case under consideration, like Emeka Nokodibo, originates also from the same Anambra State. This is worrisome, as it gives a clear indication that the State Executive Committee of the party appears not to know their limit, and hence the continued persistence in usurping of power not due to them. This is in spite of the pronouncements made by this court and its orders. The practice is a flagrant abuse of power, and the national body will do well and draw the attention of the erring state committee thereto. Judgments of court are to be obeyed and serve a guide for now and the future.
All right.
Let's even assume that, I still haven't completed answering your question. The fact that Ogwebego is the chairman of the party by the court order does not give him the right to conduct primaries. Ken Emeka did not conduct primaries. The power to conduct primaries lies with the National Executive Committee of PDP, and the Supreme Court has said this in more than 20 authorities. That is the national that will conduct primaries, and it is the national that will send list to INEC, signed by the national chairman and the national secretary. So there is no way. There's nowhere in the Constitution, there's nowhere in the Electoral Act that a state will have the power to conduct primaries.
All right, but quickly, honorable, tell me quickly, just a moment, tell me, you are a product of the state body of the party. Without coming out of the state, you might not get a ticket. You are a product of the state, isn't it? Do you agree?
No, I am a product of the National Executive Committee of the party setting up that conducted the primaries. If you look at the constitution of the PDP, it says that it is the NWC acting for the National Executive Committee of the party that will set up committees to conduct primaries. That is our constitution. And the Supreme Court, in its infinite brilliance, has sustained this in so many cases. In MNK against PDP in Abia, the same issue came up. They said that the state cannot conduct primaries.
You've heard what Mr. Ogwebego has said about the inference on the Supreme Court judgment. What is your reaction to what he said?
Well, Shem, like I said earlier, there's been a lot of blatant and crude misinterpretations of the judgment. This judgment is very clear. It's in black and white. What the Supreme Court said that they decided on the issue of Ogwebego as a chairman because there was a court order that has not been set aside. The Supreme Court, they were very clear that when the Court of Appeal got into the arena of talking about who had the right to conduct primaries or not, that they should not have gone through that route. That what was before them was to determine who was the chairman of Anambra State Chapter PDP. Now, it could be Mr. Okaf or Mr. John, Mr. James. The bottom line is the state cannot conduct primaries. That is per the constitution of the party, and that is per over 20 authorities by the Supreme Court.
Thank you so much,
Honorable Lynda. I will mention some of the cases, even in this matter, Odedo against Ogwebego.
Thank you so much, Honorable Lynda, for talking to us. Honorable Lynda chuba-ikpeazu talking to us from our Abuja studio, is a member of the House of Representatives representing Anambra State. And of course, we've also been talking to Mr. Ejike Ogwebego. That's how far we can go on the daily edition of Politics Today on Channels Television. Till next time, I'm Sean Kimberly on behalf of the team. Bye for now.